Good morning from Davos 2025. Final day here, and I'm delighted to be hosting our morning show. So, I think it's the most important thing to reflect on Donald Trump's quite bold address yesterday. Came into the Congress Center, urging global investors to manufacture in the United States, offering low taxes as an incentive, and threatening tariffs to those who don't. He also called for lower global oil prices, interest rates, and taxes, and expressed the need for NATO countries to increase defense spending. Following Trump's remarks, oil prices did fall and the S&P 500 reached a record high. Bank of Japan, however, raised its interest rates just to 0.5%, countering Trump's call for lower rates. So we've got quite high-level sessions here in the Congress Center. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva and ECB President Christine Lagarde discussing the global economic landscape. Stay tuned as we're going to delve deeper into these developments. We've got some fantastic guests up for you today. We have Euler Bropleh. He's going to talk to us about some of his investments in Africa, as well as the outlook, economic outlook for the countries he's working in. We have Mark Hutchinson, the CEO of Fortescue Future Industries. He's going to talk to us about how one Australian mining company is completely decarbonizing in the coming years. We're going to speak to Joachim Swensson. He's the co-founder of Made in Sustainability, and he's going to talk to us about the enormous amount of clothes waste and what could be done to help combat energy. And we have Laura Brounstein. I'm very interested to speak to her. Still on her LinkedIn profile is Harris for President. We're going to discuss how about half of America is dealing with these early days of the new administration. So, Euler, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great to see you.
Great to see you.
I've been very interested over the last few days to hear how the Europeans who I've had in seem to be mired in pessimism. Depending on which side of the fence you sit on, Americans seem to be, business-wise, quite pro. The folks from, admittedly, working in West Africa, there isn't any concern. They're just getting the work done. So give me the overview of how you see the countries that you're working in, economic fortunes.
Yeah, I think if you're working in Africa right now, you have to be optimistic. There's really no other option. From where the continent is now, it's starting from a relatively low base. And we think we have the tailwinds behind us where we can really take advantage of certain trends that are occurring, leverage technology and know-how to leapfrog the traditional ways of doing things. And really, we see a really bright future ahead of us. The workforce is going to be growing substantially over the next 15 to 20 years. And there's this demographic dividend that we can take advantage of, but we have to move really fast in order to get things done. And so people
by 2050, almost 25% of the global workforce. Yeah. That's extraordinary. And it could be a huge asset.
It could be a tremendous asset for any industry. But it also, there's challenges that present itself if we're not able to provide jobs for all those people that are entering their working age. We're not able to take care of the elderly population. In Africa, the average age is increasing. And so how are we going to deal with our elderly population as well as providing opportunities for the younger people?
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit about some of the ideas. I do a lot of work in India. Leapfrogging is a huge topic there. Talk to me about some of the ways you see Africa have the potential to leapfrog.
Yeah, so we've already seen Africa leapfrog in telecom technology. Most of these countries and most people never really had a landline in their house. They went straight to mobile phones, and over the last 25 years, that's skyrocketed, and now almost everybody has a phone. You've seen the same thing in fintech. Africa was at the cutting edge of introducing ways to pay via your mobile phones. And now it's all around the continent. People are leveraging that technology, and elsewhere around the world, people are using that as well. I think AI and other solutions are going to really help transform certain industries. Some of the ones I'm excited about, healthcare. Africa has only a fraction of the doctors that Europe or the US has. I think for every 10,000 people In Europe, there's about 300 and something doctors. For every 10,000 people in Africa, there's probably close to 30 doctors. And we're never really going to close that gap, but AI is going to allow you to change that. We can cough into your phone and it tell you what respiratory illness you have. You can take a picture of your skin and it'd be able to diagnose what issue you have. I was talking to someone here at Help Culture yesterday who's now has a solution where you can talk into your phone and it can diagnose whether you have a heart illness, early onset dementia, or Parkinson's. It's phenomenal what these technologies and those solutions can do. Now the challenge is how do we disseminate it and get it to people in, not just in the urban areas, but in the more rural areas, and how do we make it affordable? How do we make it accessible? How do we make it affordable? And how do we increase the quality? So healthcare is exciting. Education is really exciting. The ability to personalize what students are learning and help improve the outcomes. Again, not just in urban areas, but also in rural areas. We're seeing it in energy already, not necessarily on the AI side, but most countries, especially in East Africa, are generating a majority of their energy from renewable sources. Kenya gets 90% of its energy from renewable sources. They're generating power at a local level and distributing it locally, not necessarily relying on these huge national grids that we've seen have problems elsewhere. So those are things I'm really excited about, and I think those are where the continent really has the opportunity to leapfrog the traditional ways of doing things.
India's done an incredible job with government services as well, digitizing, and that has made it a big difference. What about in Africa?
I think Africa has an opportunity to do that. Historically, our governments have not always been the best, and they haven't really addressed or brought the services that people need. But again, software has the ability to change that. India, their national ID scheme, has allowed you to build other services on top of it. And I think you're going to see African countries do that. They're doing it in financial services and thinking through how do we reform the system to make it cheaper to transact and more secure. So all those things are going to improve over time.
So I wonder if you think that Africa has an opportunity to do things differently in terms of the environment.
Yeah.
You know, I remember interviewing an economist a few years ago who said, in Kenya, Kenyans consume about a tenth of what Americans do.
Right.
Kenya has every right to grow just as any other country does. But how can we ensure that Kenyans make the choices that are right for them as well as the planet, so that the waste that we see in some of the richer countries doesn't happen there?
Yeah, I think these countries have an opportunity to grow better, but not necessarily at an added cost. So if you're employing regenerative agricultural practices that helps you increase your yield, but maintain soil health, that's great for the environment, and it avoids some of the problems we've had elsewhere around the world. If you're able to do things more cleanly. A lot of countries are now talking through how do we eliminate plastics from our supply chain and from our products. We have a company that allows cooking oil manufacturers, rather than bottling their oil, to place their oil in a large dispenser that's then put at the retail outlet, and a consumer can come in, bring their own container, buy whatever quantity they want. And so you're eliminating plastic. The oil company is saving on packaging costs. The consumer is saving on total cost because they no longer have to buy a bottle of oil where 40% of the cost is a bottle,
right?
And they can buy whatever quantity they want. So if they can't afford $1 today, they can buy 20 cents. They can buy 10 cents worth of oil.
Right.
That's what they can afford, and that's what they need. And so these are ways that you can do things better, and it's better for the environment as well.
Tell me about some of the things you're investing in. One of my favorite companies is Victory Farms, aquaculture company acting in Kenya and Rwanda. It's such a great story.
Yeah, you know, met Joe Raymond, I guess almost 10 years ago when this was just in its forming stages. And Joe's idea was Kenya is importing the tilapia it consumes. Historically, Kenya, was able to feed itself with tilapia from Lake Victoria, but as a result of overfishing, the stock in the lake had been depleted, and he wanted to start an aquaculture operations in Kenya. The company launched formal operations in 2016. We ended up investing in 2019, so I got to know Joe over the course of 4 years before we actually made that investment, and that's been phenomenal. They're employing thousands of people both on their farm, in their logistics centers, in their branches, and then they're selling to market women who then sell to the end consumer. And over the last 5 years, the team has been able to, so previously most of the fish was imported from China, as I said, and they needed to get to a point where they could be competitive with Chinese fish on both quality and price. They knew they could be better on quality from day one. That was never the question, but price was a big issue. And now as a result of scale and really leveraging their know-how and technology.
And algorithms, right? They can predict better than the market ladies who sell the fish how many fish each one is going to sell based on the time of the year, time of the week, when people are getting paid, the school holidays. It's extraordinary.
And like very few companies, early stage companies, are able to provide information that's precise because they don't know. They're learning as you go. Victory Farms is one of those few companies that every month when they send their reports, they send us what their projections are for the next month. You look at it and you compare it to what it was, what they actually did, they're right on. And the company's been able to do a phenomenal job.
You've got more companies to talk to. We've run out of time, but Euler, thank you very much for stopping by the Hub Culture
Thank you, Edie,
morning show.
Great to
Come back
you.
and tell me more next year.
Awesome, I will.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us. Hub Culture morning news show from Davos. we're going to go to themes around waste now here in Hub Culture, Davos Morning Show. I'm Edie Lush. It's Davos 2025. Joachim Swensson, how
Hello.
are you?
Thank you. Fine.
It's good to see
Good
you.
morning.
Co-founder Made in Sustainability. And when we met, you shared with me some extraordinary statistics around waste within the textile industry.
Correct.
And when you're bored with that lovely turtleneck that you've got on, what do you think is the most likely thing that's going to happen to it if you weren't who you are?
So first, thank you for having me in your show. I'm very glad to be here, and yes, we this week was very intensive for us, and we was really happy to present our new technology, doing non-recyclable textile, changing into a high calorific value fuel. We call it the fashion fuel. And
Before you get to that, what's the scale of the problem?
the scale of the problem, we are using too much cheap clothing. We are using too much mixed product clothing, cotton with lyrex, with nylon and so on.
So not easily recyclable, is that the issue?
Finally, not recyclable.
Not recyclable.
Not recyclable.
Not
if you have,
recyclable.
for example, a jeans is the best. If you have lyrex in, the elastic, it's not recyclable anymore,
Okay.
because you cannot separate the products from each other.
Okay, so what
And
ends up happening?
1,500 jeans, depends a little bit on the weight of the fabric, is 1 ton of non-recyclable textiles.
Wow. Where does all that textile end up?
This is the biggest problem. So far, it was lands in incinerator most, but the
And what
really
kind of
bad,
emissions?
the bad things are the landfills. For example, in Peru and Chile, in the Atacama Desert, there are tons, I would say million ton of textile waste.
Extraordinary. I think of the Atacama Desert and I think of lithium mining. Now I'm going to think of clothes waste.
Yes, the same happened in Ghana at the beach, and the nature biodiversity is really very bad impact on this. The
Unaffected.
rest is between the incinerator, the landfill. It goes to countries like Ghana in Africa and so on, and this destroys also a lot of things. The problem is that in the moment the technology, the industry is working very hard to find solution, trying to recycle the product in new garments and so on, but it's a very, very difficult process. It will come, I'm sure it will come, but in the moment we have the actual problem, and the fast fashion industry, of course they get in the moment the red card from everyone all over the world, but
But
finally
people still buy.
Yeah, but this is also what I'm saying. We cannot change everything in a minute, but we have to try to find solution, to find the middle way, because no one can, not the fashion industry, and fashion, I was very long time in the fashion industry, working there. It's a very emotional product.
Right.
And so, it doesn't matter, men, women, they love
Of course.
it's something.
Well, it's like your personal brand,
yeah,
right?
Exactly, and I believe what I see, that if you see when you look in all the sustainability reports from the guy, they try to do everything, but there's industry, there's the people wants to have it. They don't say no. We take now one shirt for the next 10 years. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So we have this, and I think we are. Not because we have a solution now for this, really not, but it will. I think the behavior will change with the next generation, and the next generation, how we wear clothing, what is the fashion, and so on. But the bling bling for the fashion, I think it will still be a part of us.
So tell me what you're doing. Tell me about your new technology. It's
We
pretty
have a
exciting.
new technology, and we call it fashion to energy, to make it also popular for the end consumer, and that he understand that he is also responsible for his clothing and what he should do with the clothing. The new laws all over the world, especially California, for example, they just brought out a new law that everybody has to take care, every producer, every shop, every person about their clothing. They cannot put it somewhere or whatever like we thought. This is and we have the idea coming from my partner Wilhelm Dickmann. He's really a great engineer since many years, coming from the pet food industry, and he had the idea to find a way how what you can do with the textile. And what we are doing is, especially for non-recyclable textile, we take this, we have a process that we powderize it, and then we press it again. I make it very simple. It's a little bit more complicated,
I bet.
but I want to explain.
I'm related
it
to
easy.
engineers, and they have to really dumb things down.
This
for
I'm
me,
not. So and finally we get an end product. It looks like a pellets, like a wood pellets, and it's a fantastic product for the cement industry, for the steel industry. We can
What's
do.
it used for? You
for
make a
the-
pellet and you...
Then it's a fuel.
It's
a
fuel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In comparison, for example, the energy content, for example, from wood pellets, they go up till 16,400 kilojoule, and we go up till 19,000.
Wow. And emissions from the pellets?
We are neutral. We are CO2 neutral. So, and the industry has an advantage because it's 1-to-1. So whatever they are using, we can match this.
What does that mean?
When they take, for example, brown coal or stone coal, and like this, when they take this, and they take now instead our product, they are saving 2 carbon credits.
Okay.
So and they get 2 carbon credits. So it's really an advantage. The price is what we offer to take the waste, the textile waste from them. It's much cheaper than to bring it in an incinerator. Even now in Europe, they start to forbid to burn it's a big problem. So it's finally very good for us on one side, and also of course landfill is forbidden. And there's some restriction now, and this is why the fashion industry is looking for new solutions.
What do you need to scale up?
What we need to scale up, it's our ideal. It's not ideal. Our process, what we are doing, we are not doing only this one, the fashion to energy product. We try now to do also a cycle product, so that the products come back and with this product you do perhaps a new garment and so on. We have one other partnership with a German company. They invented, they create out of fashion and plastic a new product, a new granulate where we bring it back to the textile industry in form of hangers, furnitures, and so on. So there's a lot of things are going on, and we try to be on the top in the next years.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming in, stopping by the Hub Culture Morning News Show. Stop by and tell us how you're doing next year. See if I can...
Yeah, we are coming back, our logo, it's a boomerang. The boomerang has two functions for us, or to explain this shortly. We have one, the boomerang has 2 circles. One in an inner circle, this is my responsibility, and the big circle is the worldwide. So we are sure we are coming back.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming by, Joachim.
Thank you.
Stay in touch. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment. We're going to be exploring carbon neutrality in Australian mining. Good morning. Welcome back. My name is Edie Lush. We're here in the Hub Culture Davos morning show. Final day of Davos. I'm really excited to discuss our next topic with Mark Hutchinson. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good to see you, Edie.
Nice
Thanks
to see you.
for the invitation.
Absolutely. Thanks for sticking around for us.
That's okay. The last day.
Final day. A few short nights around for some of us. CEO of Fortescue Future Industries.
Yep.
Now, I was so pleased to have you in today because I am aware of mining both as absolutely vital to the green energy transition. We need those minerals. There aren't enough that we are already in circulation to recycle. However, mining is it is extractive, and so by nature it is resource intensive. Give me the picture, put some numbers around that broad scene I've set.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background. Fortescue, we're the fourth biggest iron ore producer in the world. We ship about 200 million tons globally, and it's a big, iron ore is a huge business in Australia. So when we look at the emissions actually for iron ore, the mining side is relatively low, but it's actually what you do with those minerals. So for example, our company, we have a scope 1, scope 2 of about 2 million tons a year, but the scope 3 is 250 million tons.
The scope 3, just to remind everybody, is everything else that you can't control.
Yeah, so the iron ore, if you think what happens to the iron ore, we send the iron ore to the steel mills. They then produce steel. So that steel making process is nearly 9% of the world's emissions. So if you put the two together, for us, it's a huge, huge area. But it's so essential. Steel is such an essential part of what we do. We need it around the world. There is a way to make it green, so we're very confident there's a path to make it green.
So what are your targets? They're pretty ambitious. I have to say 15 million tons of green hydrogen, is that right? Annually by 2030?
Yeah, so we have a number of targets. We've been very ambitious on this journey. Firstly, we kind of made the commitment 2-3 years ago to look at our entire mining operation, and it's huge, to send it green. So 100%, no offsets by 2030. So we've taken everything, we're on this journey of the trucks, the trains, the ships, everything we do on that mining site will be the first mine in the world to be done by 2030. Very, very ambitious plans. And then we also have the goal of actually producing green hydrogen, green ammonia. It's been tough, globally, but we're going to need a lot of that as we think about our next step, which is taking that iron ore, and rather than letting our customers reduce that iron ore to steel or pig iron using coal, we're going to do it for them with renewable energy and hydrogen in Australia.
The process of making steel is rather extraordinary. Just describe it for me.
Okay, so you take iron ore, which is just a base rock, which has an iron content of roughly 50%, and the rest is slag. So that gets shipped to the steel producer, and they use coal, mainly coal. There's a couple of other processes, but most of the steel industry around the world uses coal to basically heat that iron ore up and then take all the impurities out. And what you're left with is something called pig iron, which is kind of iron, and that's the base product to make steel. So then you use that in various ways to make different types of steel. So all the emissions in the steel industry, that 8-9% of global emissions, is in that process of making iron ore into pig iron. So what we're trying to do is to say, okay, rather than you do it with coal, we'll do it in Australia with renewable energy and hydrogen. So we take the emissions out of the steel industry.
That's extraordinary. So how difficult is it?
Very. So look, I think there's a number of green steel plants being created around the world. They use a very high grade iron ore, which is only a very small percentage of the iron ore in the world. So look, it's great. I think it's a great start. We actually have the bulk of the iron ore, which is a lower grade iron ore, and we think we found a way to actually do it with lower grade iron ore. That's a major, major breakthrough. So the next step then is, okay, how do you actually reduce it using hydrogen and renewable energy? We have our first pilot plant this year. We have a small pilot plant and ramping that up very, very quickly. The intention is to take that 200 million tons of iron ore and produce 100 million tons of basically pure iron.
Now, just give me a sense of what that could actually make. How many cars? pipes or
it's
buildings? Or...
enormous.
Okay.
I couldn't quantify.
Okay.
It. All I would say is that 200 million tons of iron ore is probably roughly 20% of the iron ore in the world.
Wow.
So you work that through in the steel process. Now there is another way to make steel. You use scrap metal and you melt the scrap metal. But the major polluter for the steel industry is the use of taking iron ore and making iron, green iron, or iron generally, and that's what we need to solve. Yeah.
Interesting. So tell me about the barriers you face. What needs to change in order to scale up, assuming your pilot project goes well?
Okay. So look, I think for us it's all about the cost of renewable energy, which is exactly the same with all our aspirations as we look at making green hydrogen, green ammonia around the world. We have projects in Brazil we're looking at, and Morocco, in Norway. Everything comes down to the cost of renewable energy.
Okay.
So you want to do it in places where it's cheap, if possible, and it's abundant. So why we've chosen Brazil and Norway is they have hydropower. It's excess, they don't need it. So we're taking that excess power and actually making green hydrogen out of that. In Australia, the challenge is that the cost of power is actually quite high. So the biggest challenge we have is getting that cost of power, solar and wind, down significantly. But I think we have a journey, and we have a plan to get there. So
how are you going to do that in Australia?
In Australia, we have a lot of land.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of sun. Okay, and there's a little bit of wind. It is a perfect place to do something like this at scale. It's if you came to the Western Australia where we are and we took you to the mines, there's just enormous amount of space there, and obviously the sun shines there. But as you build renewable energy, most of the cost is actually labour costs. And labour costs in Australia are quite high.
Right.
So that's where it makes it prohibitive. So we're actually looking at ways, working with many players around the world to say, okay, how do you take solar panels and you automate the installation? So we're on this path at the moment. I think we've got a good plan, and that's going to take a significant cost out of renewable energy. And that's going to be so useful for other places around the world too, actually.
I wonder if you could give me a comment on the new U.S. administration, who has made some bold promises around artificial intelligence, but some worrying statements and actions around climate change. So withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, Trump's comment to the World Economic Forum, drill baby drill. What does that mean for you?
So look, I think firstly, climate change hasn't gone away.
No,
right?
sadly.
So and this has been a great few days here, because I think there is this optimism. Firstly, that from global business, that things are looking good for business, but also the fact that we've started this journey globally on tackling climate change, and the rest of the world will keep going. So we're not stopping. We've got to show a way that rather than it being a goal of meeting certain metrics on net zero, that it's economic. And I think if we can show the way that tackling climate change actually is economic, we're going to win this battle, right? So if we look at our own decarbonisation of our mining operation, we will spend about $6 billion to do that, but we save 1 billion litres of diesel every year. And so by 2030, we'll never have to buy diesel ever again. And so for us, we're doing it because it's economic. So that's, and we look at the US at the moment. Yes, they come out with climate change and they have their views. They're economic pragmatists at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So if we can show that there's a way to do it, then we think economics wins the day. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mark, for stopping by Hub Culture Morning Show here this morning. I am Edie Lush. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Hub Culture Morning Show here in Davos 2025. Really interested now to hear from Lance Pierce. He is the Chief Executive Officer at NetHope. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much, Edie. Thank you for having me.
It's the end of a long week.
It's the end of a very long week, very tiring week, but it's an important event for us. We're a membership organization, so many of our international members are here. We partner extensively with the tech sector, and so many of the tech companies that we work with are here. And certainly all the issues that we work on are central to the agenda in many ways. So
this seems to be the year that AI has gone from, if I just sort of very briefly reprise the last 4 years, it's gone from AI is coming to AI will save us all to AI will kill us all to now it feels like actually there's some very good applications for artificial intelligence for good. But of course, that comes with some warnings. We heard from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres this week. We heard from the Pope's emissary this week, both calling for ethical use of AI, and also for people to be really mindful about using it for good, not making the same mistakes that we did, for example, with social media.
I think social media is really the example that everyone's fearing, and if you look at the global risk index in the next couple of years, misinformation and disinformation is sort of at the top of everyone's concerns, and of course AI is going to be or could be a big driver of that. And in our case, many of the big international NGOs that we work with are actively experimenting with AI to try to figure out what's the best use for the technology, how can they use it to help more people. We've got organizations experimenting with AI-assisted mapping in emergency response settings and humanitarian work.
Where's that?
That's happening by a group called Humanitarian OpenStreetMap. That's a member organization of NetHope, and they're doing that in various settings around the world. We've got groups like Catholic Relief Services looking to try to predict food prices in the event of extreme weather events or other crises, so that people will understand how to, whether or not they can continue to afford to buy food. Orbis is another member organization of NetHope, and they're doing tremendous work on eye diagnostics. So
Eye diagnostics.
So yes, actually looking at the health of the eye to see to diagnose treatable eye conditions, and also apparently the eye is a tremendous window into overall bodily health. So you can actually increasingly start to diagnose other conditions that are going on based on what's happening with the eye. We've got organizations that are really trying to look at how they can understand the information that they have in-house. It's true for the not-for-profit sector as well as the private companies, that they have a lot of data locked up in documents and PDFs and other places that are inaccessible, and now they're taking a look to see how can they understand what do they have, what do they know, how can they use that to build off the base of knowledge and experience to really develop new programs, new kinds of impacts, and so on. So there are reasons to be concerned, to be sure, because the risks are great and the potential for harm is great.
Yeah.
But there are a number of really promising activities and experiments going on that people are really trying to take this technology, find out how they can use it to help more people better. And that's really the mission of NetHope. NetHope is really, we're both a membership organization and a partnership organization. And our job really is to help the international not-for-profit sector serve more people more effectively through the use of digital and data technologies.
I mean, it's extraordinary. If you go to places like India, Africa, there's an incredible leapfrogging. So didn't need a landline, now a mobile phone. We know that story. There's also a big challenge, though, in terms of the number of people who are on the internet. Still half the world does not have access. How important is that in some of the work that you do?
Connectivity is crucial. In fact, the first decade or 15 years or so of NetHope was really focused on, we're 24 years old this year, and so the first decade or so of work was really, a lot of it focused on connectivity, helping bring people online and so on. That's still very important because we do still have over 2 billion people who are not online and don't have access to the digital economy. But it's also true that there's a tremendous number of people who are online and are still don't have complete access to all the tools and services that you might
Right.
expect elsewhere. So we've got both of these things going on simultaneously. And I think we do need to work to bring people online for reasons of equity, but we also need to be working with people who are online to make sure that the products and tools and services they're using are safe and that they're truly life-enhancing, life-affirming, life-improving in some ways.
What do you think we're going to be surprised about in the next year in terms of some of the way that artificial intelligence is going to change how we deliver services? I remember, was it yesterday or the day before, the CEO of Anthropic AI saying that within 2 years we're going to have PhD level intelligence. So as close to artificial general intelligence as perhaps most of us need. What is that going to mean for some of the groups that you work with?
Well, I think that we've certainly been hearing that here as well, that the speed of change is going to be surprising for everyone, that we will have products and services that really seem like they're a decade or more away, and they're actually coming much sooner than that. And I think in our case, again, we're going to look to try to help the sector learn from itself. We're a big convening platform for all the international organizations to come together and to learn about how to better use technology. And so one of the things we're going to be doing is trying to bring people together to share some of that learning, to leapfrog within civil society, within non-for-profit organizations so that they can learn from each other faster. That's really always been one of our roles. And in doing that, we're going to hopefully be part of the spirit to share what's working so that AI works for people and it works for people more effectively.
I mean, some of the challenges aren't just with technology. I interviewed somebody recently who was working in Nepal, and there were two branches of a river. And
Right.
on one branch of the river, it had access to the same satellite technology in terms of when dangers were going to come of a flood, etc. One branch had an incredibly tight community leaders. So when the information came through the technology, through the phone, moved people away. The other branch of the river
Right.
wasn't so well connected, didn't have such a strong community network. And so when the floods came, the whole place was flooded because it wasn't. So it's not just technology, right?
No, it's not just technology. And we really try to emphasize that in our work. Technology is only as good, is only as effective, and is only as helpful, and sometimes is the social context and milieu in which it's embedded. So there will never not be a need for strong social ties, strong social networks, people sort of organizing, whether it's among themselves or working with authorities or working with governments, working with companies. All of that's still going to be essential. That's human. And if we've got those things in place, then you can really use technology to its full potential as a tool that really helps. And absent that, technology can be like any other tool, disruptive, harmful. And so, we really do stress the fact that this is technology for people. It's not technology for its own sake.
Yeah. Thank you so much for stopping by the Hub Culture Morning News Show here in Davos.
Thank you.
Stay with us. I'm Edie Lush. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Hub Culture Morning Show. Really interested in this next guest, my friend Laura Brounstein. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. CEO of Stories That Matter.
It's LB and Partners. Stories That Matter is the tagline.
Oh, the tagline, LB and Partners. There you go. Okay. So on your LinkedIn profile, I did notice it still says Harris for
I know. I
president.
haven't let it go yet.
No, can't let it go.
No, I need to take it. I know it's like my big picture, and I need to change it.
Well,
I just wasn't quite ready. But
no, it's all right.
Maybe it's time.
It's all right. But I think what's important for this conversation, which we haven't had this week here, is the discussion around reproductive rights.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not an issue just in the United States, but it is one that was raised from the midterms onwards because of the Supreme Court case. Give me a sense of where you think the United States is at the moment.
Petrified. I think women have every reason to be concerned. Women are being prosecuted for getting abortions or trying to get abortions. There's over 200 cases of that. And there is so much danger now to somebody who's having a healthy, wanted pregnancy in one of the states with an abortion ban, because that also nixes some of the obstetric care they might need. In Louisiana, you are really unable to access pills like mifepristone and misoprostol, which are for medication abortion, but are also used in cases of natural miscarriage. To kind of end it, and miso is, and you can't access that there. So it's a little scary, I think, in many states, and there's also the reinstatement of the global gag rule, and that people around the world, even in aid situations, are not allowed to bring up the possibility of abortion. And here's something interesting. This week I did a panel on AI in healthcare. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to use AI to just get some ideas for things and see what AI would come back with. And I asked questions about reproductive rights in America, abortion, access, and it kept writing back with like reproductive healthcare. And at some point I said, Claude, I notice you're not using the word abortion to the AI. And it came back and said, you're right, I should be more specific. I said, you really should, because it destigmatizes it when you use the actual word.
Did it say updating memory?
It said, thank you for pointing that out. It is true, it is destigmatizing. I will use the word abortion. And it was like, was that a machine learning moment? And how odd.
Right.
Just a tangent of like, wow, that was interesting.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about AI and how that, or digital tools. There's been an explosion of digital tools for women to track their periods, if they're interested, if they are trying to get pregnant. But what implications do those things have in this new world in which women don't necessarily have control or the rights over their own bodies?
So some are certainly more secure than others, but I think women need to be very careful if they live someplace where there is not protection for reproductive rights, because period tracking apps can be used against you, because it could show, your cycle, and it can be used against you. So I was in this conversation around the benefits of AI for healthcare, how it can create personalized healthcare, but we have to also find ways to make sure we protect women, half the population, so that they can access the benefits without putting themselves in danger. But the exciting part is that AI does have the possibility to help us catch up with health research for women and girls. Medical trials with women were not started in the US until 1994. And so we are so behind in terms of research for, they don't know anything about menopause, basically.
Right.
They're like, oh, you're hot. So there is a lot to be done.
Yeah. Talk to me about the next 4 years. I'm imagining you're not leaving the United States.
No.
Okay, not one of those. We do have
Never.
some of them coming to London.
Yeah.
But I imagine you might be looking forward to the midterms. Tell me what the outlook for those who are concerned about reproductive rights are looking for?
I think right now it's just finding all the ways we can to keep people safe. And I'm talking about women who need reproductive health care, but I'm also talking about our LGBTQ friends and those facing citizens, facing the fear of deportation with the conversation around revoking birthright citizenship. So I think the first thing is to do whatever we can to keep our friends safe and to keep telling stories that matter so that we keep having this kind of conversation. You know, I worry that the chilling on certain things in the US is going to have a global effect. You know, if the US is having, you know, conversations about vaccines that we thought were solved 100 years ago, is that going to hurt the efforts of a group like Gavi and others around the world who are focused on inoculating those in the global south against, you know, hideous diseases? How is the US pulling back from vaccines going to affect others?
And also, not just vaccines for those kind of diseases, but the vaccines that are coming within a couple of years against cancer, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
There's a lot to be concerned about.
One of my friends said to me, you know, we need to keep an open mind. And I was like, here's the thing. I don't think you're going to talk me out of fluoride and legal abortions.
Yeah.
Pretty set on
Yeah,
both.
pretty set on both.
Yeah. Cavity's bad. Yeah.
Laura, thank you very much for stopping
Thank
by the
you.
Hub Culture Morning Show here in Davos. I am Edie Lush. We will be back this afternoon with our final chat from Davos.